came out and said.
What's that?
And he's the leader of the militia in eastern Ukraine.
Yeah.
He said, look, I wouldn't give this information any credence because if it weren't for what I've seen them doing to the civilians, which is bombing civilians and schools, and he's like, I have to present this information. They have 3 ballistic missiles, which are close to nukes, right? They're not nukes, but they're 1,000-pound payload bombs.
So this is the Ukraine army.
This is the Ukrainian army.
Which is the
They've been given to them by the United States, right? And he says they've got 3 facilities that they're aiming at. One of them has 190 tons of chlorine. Another one has 160 tons of chlorine. And what they're waiting for is a gust of wind, an easterly wind. And what they are planning to do is to hit these with ballistic missiles, and everything within 500-kilometer radius will be dead.
Chlorine is very, very dangerous.
Chlorine gas.
It's used in the pipe industry in particular.
Yeah.
And when I worked in Port Alberni in the pulp mill there,
Right.
they had sensors and the alarms would go off, and you had to get the hell out.
Yeah, well, and what he's saying is, like, look, they're bombing our towns and blaming it on us in the media. So that's what these soldiers are doing. These soldiers are literally firing into these towns, and then they're being, as they go into the town and they see all the destruction, they're saying, see what these rebels have done? And they captured 2 of them yesterday, 48 hours ago, and they shed some light on the situation. They were mobilized at night.
Right.
They told they were going on 10 days of training. That was 4 months ago. And they weren't even allowed to vote. So these Ukrainian army aren't even allowed to vote for the government that they're dying for.
Right.
He's saying, the first time I saw our president, our new president, was on the newspaper a few days ago. I didn't even see him on TV before. They told us that we were going to go home and see our people because you're allowed leave, vacation, after a certain... All their contracts are up. They were given 5,000 UAH, and then 150, and then 160, which is nothing. That's like a couple hundred Australian bucks, right? So they're forced to leave their work, and they've raised the tax for the army tax, and now the next thing that Poroshenko's thinking of is calling martial law because it's all falling to bits. 400 troops, including 138 National Guardsmen, defected to Russia. And and
Now,
they're saying they're being betrayed by their generals because they have no food, no water, they have no ammunition. They said they would last about half an hour in a fight.
Yeah.
So
Now, tell about the one that parachuted from the plane they shot down, and then what the townspeople did to them.
well, because these guys are in Su-27s, which are massive, they're massive military jets,
Right.
and they're used for bombing runs.
Yes.
Right? It's like what they're using in Gaza, except in Gaza they're using F-15s, and these don't carry the payload that the Su-27s do.
Right.
The Su-27s have a 5 times heavier payload than what they're using in Gaza. So think about the destruction you see there, and think about that. And they're using these on civilian populations, right? And so what happened was they shot down one of these jets, and the guy ejected out. And if the militia had gotten there, he probably would have been survived and taken to... Because they don't realize what they're doing. See, that's what the militia is doing. They're taking the Ukrainian army, and they're giving them help, let them recover, and they're saying, look, this is what you're doing. And the Ukrainian army is standing there going, no, we told this was you. We were told this is you killing all these people. No, it's not us. And they're like, what's this? And they sit down an M-Grad missile right in front of them, and they go, oh, shit. And they're like, we pulled this out of the house. We don't have this. We've been stealing these machines from you. But does it make sense that we would be firing our own positions in our own towns? This is what they're telling you in the media? Could you be so stupid? Use your brains. And, there's a video where there's a leader of a battalion of the militia. He goes and they exchange bodies with the Ukrainian army. And he's standing there with the Ukrainian army, one of the commanders, and he said, look, my conclusion is he's brainwashed. He thinks it's us shooting in our own towns and killing our own people. This is what they're telling them. Now, the pilot, he ejected, and the townspeople saw where he landed, and they beat him to death. because he was bombing their houses. He destroyed their towns. And like you hear all the Ukrainian army that they've been capturing, and they capture and they give them help, give them food, give them medical care, because the army doesn't give a shit about them. They literally said to the army's face, "You're cannon fodder. Go fight for Kolomoisky." This is the go fight for Poroshenko.
Kolomoisky now is the dude who's setting himself up as the king of Khazaria, right?
Yeah, the king of Khazaria, and he's the one that's directly funding Azov, which is the neo-Nazi right sector battalion, and he's also funding the National Guard. Now, they've realized that the Ukrainian army is, it's just too much, because there's too many people that don't want to fight for Poroshenko and his war. The mothers in all the towns are standing in front of the vehicles and not letting it happen. And they're going through now political means where they're basically going to go rip these people to shreds. But the fact is the United States turned around and said, in 2015, we're sending arms and troops to the National Guard. Fuck the Ukrainian army. Which is diabolical. It's terrible what they're doing.
In 2015.
And at the same time, you got ISIS, right? This is the exact same spectrum. ISIS over in Iraq and over in Afghanistan. They've literally been shooting people on drive-by shooting all these cars. Any car that's nice, riddling it, killing all these innocent people, killing Christians, putting their heads on pikes, and then praising John McCain for it afterwards. So, now at least in Ukraine, they're waking up to it, right? Because the message is spreading. 400 troops, 438 troops just saying, 464 troops saying enough.
And they defected pretty much to Russia?
Well, no, they haven't defected because Russia's not going to basically say, oh, okay, here's citizenship, stay in our country. They have to send them back. And when they send them back, they're trialed as deserters. And as the Ukrainian army bloke was saying, he was like, look, They intimidate us, and they just intimidate them. They say, if you don't want to fire, you don't want to go fight and die for your country, 30 years prison. If it's not 30 years prison, you'll be hung. That's what they're saying to these boys that get picked up at night, and that's why the mothers are absolutely just. And then just recently, they had Poroshenko go send out another 15,000 draft slips into one small town, which basically takes up the entire population, and it's now no longer from the ages of 18 to 25, it's all able-bodied men. So literally you had a town of 15,000 of all the men from an entire village, and they're going, no, something's wrong here. And the mothers are saying, look, Poroshenko, we want peace. We want peace. Let those who were protesting in Kiev go fight for Poroshenko. She's saying, like, what the hell are we doing? And these are you got to understand, like, Kiev is the capital of Ukraine. These are all the eastern and western and southern villages. Like, they live on farmlands. This is not what you saw in Kiev. This is not bullshit uprising coup that you saw. They're not going to go fight. No, they're sitting back getting rich. And that's another thing what the soldiers were saying. They're saying, look, we're threatened with death. We're threatened with prison, 30 years prison, if we don't want to kill our own people. And it's Poroshenko's war. He's sitting there and he's getting fat. They said, look, it's a money laundering scheme. How can they be getting paid so much money for military, and this is the shit they send us? And it shows a clip of a guy, the Ukrainian army putting on. And he's cussing his head out at Poroshenko as he's trying to put this vest on the guy. He's like, this is the effing crap this effing Poroshenko is sending us? What is this? He's a businessman. Look at this. Did he make this from an effing tin can? This is metal plates. Now, that's the dumbest thing for body armor is metal plates. And he's putting it together, and he's... So it's coming down to the point where you're going to see a bloodbath. Right? What's going to happen? And it's bubbling. It is bubbling, because these 400 troops can't return, and nothing good can come of it. And what are they going to do? Kill all 400? All their contracts are up. They haven't been paid. They've been left out in the fields to die. All the ones in the hospitals that are getting interviewed by the militia, they said, I thought I was left to die like a dog, and then I woke up here. And here are the terrorists that we were supposed to be killing. They're not terrorists, they're farmers, they're locals, they're miners. You know, at the same time, the National Guard's picking up young boys that have been playing Call of Duty, right? And they're getting their asses absolutely kicked. As soon as a gunshot goes off, they're scared and they're running into the bushes because they're fighting against militias that are ex-veterans. You know, and and that's what even they're saying. They're saying, look, we have no chance. We have no experience. They give us 10 days training, put a gun in your hand and say, go do this. And we're going against war-torn vets. That's how the militia's getting through it. You know? And as you saw in May, the Crimea militia, an able body of something like 13,000 men, they said, look, we're here with you, and we're coming to help you in the east because we saw what they have been doing, how they've been... Because what happened was, Ukrainian army, or these National Guard, went through an entire hospital and slaughtered everybody in the hospital. Doctors, wounded men, everybody. And word got back to Crimea, and they said, fuck no. No. So they grabbed all their weapons, and they said, we're going to meet you. And they said, look, they said, mothers, come out to the battlefields and grab your sons and take them home, or else they're going to be killed. We do not intend to take hostages. If anybody gets in front of our way, we will raise them up out of the ground. That's it. They said, hold on, brothers. You know, we're coming. So that was in May, right? So that's been a big contribution and help to the militia surviving as long as they have been. But at the same time, you know, look, you know, the U.S. military is saying, oh, we're going to give 19 million. The U.S. is saying, oh, we're going to give 19 million to the Ukrainian military. This is going straight into Jews' pockets. They showed the bread that they're sending out onto the battlefields. 8 loaves for, over 300 men. 8 loaves, and they can't even eat the outsides of it. They can eat about that much of the inside that's soft, and they have to cut it up, and they're saying this is what they're sending us? This is what all this money, you know? Yatsunic, $18.1 billion from the IMF. Where the hell has that gone, people? And at the same time, on the people in Kiev, they've had to take a 50% pay cut, and taxes have increased along with that pay cut. Meanwhile, Crimea, as soon as they defected to Russia, they all took a 238% pay increase. Russia has been the one that's opening its arms and saying, brothers, look, it's Putin in Syria all over again. Putin, everybody's going, Putin, do something in Syria, intervene. And he said, fuck no, sit back. And what are we seeing? We're seeing the Syrian army crush the rebels, right? And now, what did he do in Ukraine? He sat back and look what's happening. It's like, just let them destroy themselves. That's what they're doing. You know, this whole plan will come to an end because it can't work. But at the same time, you know, they've got these 3 ballistic missiles aimed at this chlorine. You have Donetsk People's Republic militia leaders saying, look, if they weren't killing our children, I wouldn't bring you this information. I'd just dismiss it as nonsense. But it's very serious, and they're going to blame us for it. You know, they're going to call it chemical warfare, and they're going to blame us for it. So... good thing, and he held a press conference, all right? Because usually this guy's not going to get on the press conference because they're trying to hunt him down and kill him. You know?
Okay. So moving along, your executive summary of the Ebola.
Well, because look, like everything's falling to bits, right? Everything's falling to absolute shit. The only plan that they have that looks like it's really working, and it's not even really a plan, it's just mass slaughtering of Christians, right? You gotta understand, Syria, Pakistan, Afghanistan, their original races are blonde-haired, blue-eyed, and there is still traces of those races today, and they're mainly Christian, or they're called Christian Orthodox. That's who they're slaughtering. That's who they're going after and killing, okay? And that's all it is. They're putting heads on pikes, 50 of them. There's footage of it. It's ridiculous. They're rounding up teens and just putting bullets in their heads. And this is all, you know, and they're all praising John McCain for it. They're all going, thank you, McCain, for supporting us and letting us go. Well, these are not Islamists. These are just fucking animals. And that's about the only thing that's going right for them at the moment. Everything else, such as, the MH17 flight that went down, Dutch authorities are going, this is bullshit. Definitely couldn't have been those rebels. Couldn't have been the militia. It had to have been Ukrainian forces or U.S. specialists. As we're seeing, everything go to shit, I think their last card that they're going to pull is, of course, martial law in the United States via an Ebola outbreak, just so they can grip something, grip it. Because as soon as, it's almost like a nuclear scare. You're not going to go over to a nuked out country in fear of radiation. No one's walking into Chernobyl, are they? Well, no one's going to go to the United States or UK or any of these other places if it's got an Ebola outbreak, supposedly. And they'll force everybody to take vaccinations. The vaccinations is probably more deadly than the fucking virus. So, again, it's a soul grab. It's a fear porn, fear mongering soul grab.
Isn't the Ebola patented?
The Ebola was patented in 2009, and not only that, in 2009 you had $7 billion given to a research fund of scientists in Sierra Leone to weaponize a biological parasite, or not parasite, but to make a biological weapon, revamp and renew. And this is within the same time frame of them putting a patent on a new weaponized version of Ebola. Now those scientists are all dead now, but yeah, and again, you got to look at it as, because I saw that some woman had come off the plane in Gatwick and she was sweating and vomiting and she died right there in Gatwick. Digging further, it turns out no, she actually got onto the ambulance and went to the hospital, and they checked her blood and they checked all the people that she came in contact with, quarantined the plane, and there was no Ebola virus.
Right.
But the media is saying woman dies from Ebola coming right off the plane. Fear of infection spreading.
Now, what were you talking about, John Rappaport? I've got his document here.
You've just got to, look, you're focusing, they're making you, again, focus on Ebola and not the bigger picture of what they're actually been doing to Africa for years and years and years. They're sending chemicals over there that induce bleeding, mass bleeding. Chemicals that are banned all across the world. They're sending them over there for agricultural use, and they're sending it in their plastics, they're sending it in their dyes, they're sending it. And then you've got the antibiotics. I can't remember what they're called. They're called bi-atoms, and these actually induce mass bleeding, traumatic bleeding. And what's happening is these people get diarrhea, and with that they expel all of their electrolytes, and the little food that they do take in, these antibiotics don't let them absorb it, so they die. And they're calling this Ebola, in a sense. They're not calling it Ebola, but what they're doing is saying, look, 800 more people have died from us and our ignorance of what we're doing and what we're sending, this forced genocide of people, and it's Ebola. And he puts it in a very, very simple...
well, I'll read that. You've got to get yourself ready.
Yeah,
thank you.
No problem.
Shall I read John Rappaport's report then?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so John Rappaport, August the 2nd. Looks like his site is nomorefakenews.com, and he calls it Ebola, covert op in a hypnotised world. He says you show people a germ and you tell them what it is and what it does, and people salute, they give in. They believe. They actually know nothing, but they believe. The massive campaign to make people believe the Ebola virus can attack at any moment after the slightest contact is quite a success. People are falling all over themselves to raise the level of hysteria. This is what is preventing a hard look at Liberia, Sierra Leone, and the Republic Guinea, 3 African nations where poverty and illness are staples of everyday life for the overwhelming number of people. The command structure in those areas has a single dictum: don't solve the human problem. Don't clean up the contaminated water supplies. Don't return stolen land to the people so they can grow food and finally achieve nutritional health. Don't solve overcrowding. Don't install basic sanitation. Don't strengthen their immune system so they can ward off germs. Don't let the people have power, because then they would throw off the local and global corporate juggernauts that are sucking the land of all of its resources. In order not to solve the problems of the people, a cover story is necessary. A cover story that exonerates the power structure. A cover story like a germ. It's all about the germ, the demon, the strange attacker. And then he has in brackets, see for example this March 27th, Reuters article entitled, "Beware of Bats, Guinea issues bushmeat warning after Ebola outbreak." Forget everything else, the germ is the single enemy. Forget the fact, for example, that a recent study of 15 pharmacies and 5 hospital drug dispensaries in Sierra Leone discovered the widespread and unconscionable use of beta-lactam antibiotics. These drugs are highly toxic. One of their effects, excessive bleeding, which just happens to be the scary Ebola effect that's being trumpeted in the world press. Then he has a reference to a J. Klin microbial, July 13th, and Annals of Internal Medicine, December 1986, entitled Potential for Bleeding with the New Beta-Lactam Antibiotics. Forget the fact that pesticide companies are notorious for shipping banned toxic pesticides to Africa. One effect of the chemicals, bleeding. Forget that. It's all about the germ and nothing but the germ. Forget the fact that for decades, one of the leading causes of death in the third world has been uncontrolled diarrhea. Electrolytes are drained from the body and the adult or the baby dies. Any sane doctor would make it his first order of business to replace electrolytes with simple supplementation. But no, the standard medical line goes this way. The diarrhea is caused by germs in the intestinal tract, so we must pile on massive amounts of antibiotics to kill the germs. The drugs kill off all bacteria in the gut, including the necessary and beneficial ones, and the patient can't absorb what little food he has access to and he dies. Along the way, he can also bleed. But no, all the bleeding comes from Ebola. It's the germ. Don't think about anything else. Forget the fact that adenovirus vaccines, which have been used in Liberia, Guinea and Liberia, the epicenter of Ebola, have, according to vaccines.gov, the following adverse effects: blood in the urine or stool and diarrhea. No, all the bleeding comes from the Ebola germ. Of course. Don't think about anything else. Then in the centre of this, he has power outside the matrix. A reporter, Charles Yates, uncovered a scandal in Liberia centering around the Firestone rubber plantation, chemical dumping poisoned water, and skin disease. Rash is listed as one of the Ebola symptoms. So is diarrhea. Liberia Coca-Cola bottling plant, foul black liquid seeping into the environment, animals dying. Chronic malnutrition and starvation, conditions that are endemic in Liberia, Sierra Leone and Guinea, are the number one cause of T cells depletion in the world. T cells are a vital component of the immune system. When that system is compromised, any germ coming down the pipeline will cause epidemics and death. Getting the picture? Blame it all on the germ. Allow the corporate government domination to continue. Now, a little bit about John Rappaport. He's actually an Australian. Always gets to the nitty-gritty and never been afraid to dig deep and reveal what's really going on. But he's the author of 3 explosive collections: The Matrix Revealed, Exit from the Matrix, and Power Outside the Matrix. John was a candidate for a U.S. congressional seat in the 29th District of California. I don't know where I got the idea he's Australian. He can't be... No.
No, you can't be president of America.
No. He has to be... Anyway.
If you live in America, you can run, I think.
Okay.
That's right.
He maintains a consulting practice for private clients, the purpose of which is the expansion of personal creative power. Nominated for a Pulitzer Prize, he has worked as an investigative reporter for 30 years, writing articles on politics, medicine and health for CBS Health Watch, LA Weekly, etc. John has delivered lectures and seminars. All right, so you can get his free emails, but so that's his take on what's going on. It's actually an antibiotic. Now, of course, that's what they have done throughout the world with AIDS and the AZT drug. It's a toxic chemical concoction, 30 different chemicals in it, that apparently was stockpiled for a long time, couldn't get rid of it, and then they decided that they will prescribe it for every HIV positive native in the dark-skinned nations like New Guinea.
But
and
HIV has got nothing to do
yes,
with
no,
that.
HIV is all a scam. It's all about selling their test kits again. And bottom line is, in New Guinea, for example, we know we've been there.
It's just suspicious as that they're saying that this is a new hybrid strain of Ebola, and yet they've already got a new vaccine for it. They're saying it's not curable, but here's a vaccine for it.
Yeah.
You know, so...
I'd like to hear a hearty 3 cheers to Bill Gates.
Yes, but we...
wonderful work he's doing with vaccines.
Yes, he believed he could get rid of 10% of the population of the world through vaccines, didn't he?
Oh,
that's his contribution. We can, addressing the overpopulation problem.
And the global warming because of the overpopulation.
Yes.
What he was saying is that it's too many human units, which is causing the global warming pandemic that we see now and today.
Yet the world's been getting cooler for the last 30 years.
And if you put all of the people, the 7 billion, together on one lot of land, how much of the rest of the world would be vacant?
There was a lecture done.
100%.
There was a lecture done by a man that actually looked at the old Doomsday. It was called the Doomsday Manuscript Ledger, which was back in the time of the kings. They took note of who owned all the land, right? And
that was William the Conqueror has set down a 9-year doom. Is what it's called, the 9-year doom.
Yeah. Well, they
couldn't grow. They couldn't do nothing.
Yeah.
For 9 years.
Well, what happens was they did another one, but they didn't release it to the public. He actually got hold of these records, and it showed exactly who owns the most land in the world. Of course, it's the Queen, but he was throwing out the numbers, and he says, "Look, it's almost 100. It's hundreds and millions of soccer fields worth of land out there. Even if the population gets to 10 billion, we're all sitting on at least 6,000 acres of land.
Each person.
Each person."
Exactly.
You know, he's like, but the way that we're doing it now, per acre of land, we have 10 to 20 people living in per acre of land in these concentrated cities. And they're talking about overpopulation.
Well, you could mention the fact that what we're doing here is showing people how to grow food that you couldn't keep up with in a very, very small area inside a house.
Yeah.
Right?
It's called...
Just explain that for a moment.
Well, yes, it's called sprouting. This is where we've decided to go. We've got this greenhouse, but we've decided in order for a fast turnaround and for the most benefit nutritionally that we'll use it for sprouting. And I thought from once they're sprouted, that from that I'll ferment them, because then they can be kept. Fermenting is covering them with salt. The salt draws moisture out of, for example, when you're making sauerkraut, the cabbage, raw cabbage that goes in, and a layer of salt, layer upon layer in a jar, cabbage salt, cabbage salt, cabbage salt. What happens is that the salt draws the moisture out of the cabbage, so now it's in a salty brine, and leaving it out
The point is, in a very small area, in a darkened room, you can grow sprouts that you couldn't, a small family can eat continuously.
Yes.
You couldn't eat it quick enough.
Yeah.
It grows so quickly.
Yes. And you can juice it, you can make it,
Show people how to do that.
You can make soups, you can cook the sprouts or eat them raw, whatever. But you can preserve them easily with salt, so you can have a stockpile, because the fermented products are the healthiest products they give you all of the gut flora that you need, help with digestion, and anyway, so that's what we're doing with our greenhouse.
The whole point is, if you see what they're doing in Africa, and I've been to Africa 3 times, and I've seen it with my own eyes, what they're doing, and the starvation and the pathetic Jews that control them. And it all goes back to the British. Cecil Rhodes. That's where the Rhodes scholarships come from. The 600 alone each year are given to scholars in America to go to Oxford. Bill Clinton was one, for example. Malcolm Fraser was another. The ex-Australian Prime Minister. Several of the Australian Prime Ministers have been Rhodes Scholars. And go to Oxford, and that's where they get educated on how to do all that.
Yep.
And they get indoctrinated into reducing the world population. And this is how they're doing it. So they then become members of this fraternity, and then we are setting them up in Australia, for example, on an ongoing basis, that are all coming out of Oxford, England, right? And how to kill people. So this is what they're doing. So if you think they're not doing it to you, with the chemtrails, the vaccinations and the babies and all this kind of thing, and the food and the alimentarius and all those kind of things that are doing to the white races, you think they're not doing it to Africa? You think they're not doing it in New Guinea and Fiji? We've been there treating people? No? It's real. Right? So where does it all come from? What's that famous 3 letters that we should never say? And we're going to forget entirely in the future? Jews.
I think we're going to replace it with, I gotta go take a crap. I gotta go take a Jew.
Throw another Jew in the bar here, man.
Yeah. Anything derogatory, such as fuck and faggots and all those things that they have taken from us, we're going to reinstall those without the perverted version and replace that with Jew.
What the Jew are you doing?
Exactly.
Go get Jew.
You'll never guess what I saw the other day. I saw a woman with short hair and pink, and she was fat and tattooed. I think she was a Jew. See what I'm saying? Call it for what it is.
So on with the show, my dear.
Well, that was John Rappaport and his take. Let me see what time we're up to. 33. I haven't checked.
Now, what's happening down at Nehemiah? They're covering up the cameras again. So it would seem that the one day that we've had of a 9 hours, nearly 10 hours of sunlight, when it should be dark, they are covering up something that is coming in. They go out there and throw a wet rag over the front of the camera, and that's it. So, our planets are coming in to take care of the Jews, big time. Now, I've been watching a few James Bond movies recently because the boys sort of downloaded them for me to have a look at. And within the first few minutes, they're talking about the dangers of uranium and plutonium, which is bullshit. That's what it's all about, free energy. Plutonium is the greatest thing that's ever been revealed to be available on the Earth. And they've totally done the same thing as they're doing with the Ebola, as they're doing with the vaccination programs, as they're doing with the biggest terrorists of the world are the newspaper industry and the media. That's where your problem is. I would advise everybody out there, and in the kingdom, if you believe in me right now, in the kingdom, and people are going to war and they're doing these massacres, start off, if you're going to do it subversively, right? From a distance, and shoot the editors. Until the newspapers are run by the newspaper reporters, right? How many of these people are in control? Now look what happened to us in New Guinea.
Yes, our second trip back there. So we had... how did that come about? How did we end up at...
We went to see the newspaper because the lady was going to run the cure for AIDS.
Yeah, Golightly Kenneth was the reporter. So we went to see Golightly on Sunday. We were told to meet her there. First of all, we called in, didn't we? And said, we want to see a reporter, we have the cure for AIDS. At which the receptionist just looked at us, oh my God, because they don't hear those words. They hear all of the time, there is no cure for AIDS. So as soon as they are told they are HIV positive, mentally it's a death sentence to them.
Well, they give them the ACT drug.
Well, yes, that's what I was explaining before. But first is the diagnosis. They have been so conditioned. HIV positive, immediately in the minds of the people, it is a death sentence because they have been told and educated, that's what all the money's for, the education, that there is no cure for AIDS. Then they go under the law, and then they have to go on to the AZT drug that I was explaining before. That's the chemical cocktail that causes the symptoms of what people...
and the government has to pay 2,000.
Yes, the government pays for every person, it's 2,000 kina or something like that, to the drug companies for the monthly supply of drugs to each victim that has come under the law. And they are told that if they miss a single drug, then they'll probably die. So it's the fear porn from the beginning. Now, the AZT drug, those that we treated, and we treated hundreds of them over the 2 different times that we were there, it's the ones that were on the AZT that were experiencing all of the problems, the not wanting to eat, the pain, the nausea, the listlessness, the tiredness, etc. Well, it was coming from the AZT drug. There were others that were told they were HIV and they refused to take the drug. They were better off than those that were taking the drug. So, how did we end up in the newspaper? Okay, we went to the newspaper. We've got the cure for AIDS because by this time, our second trip, everybody we were treating, 100% of the people that we treated responded and got their lives back within half an hour. That's all it took. And we're resuming their lives with full life strength. We go to the newspaper. We come back this Sunday to meet with Golightly. We walk in and we say, look, we've got the cure for AIDS. And she just looked up and she said, I think I have AIDS. And I said to her, well, if you do, you won't have by the time we finish with you. So we immediately put the Bob Beck wrist pulsar on her and started treating her with the silver water and ozonated silver water. And then just started talking as she's typing and taking notes. Her little boy, too, he'd been really sick with a flu-like cough and mucousy cough, that kind of thing. So we gave her, after the first day where she said, all this will take is me pressing the button and it will go to 148 countries. So Brian, of course, tells her that it's not going to go. And she said, yes, this is all I have to do, it will. And he goes, no, they will stop it. And she really doubted what you were saying. So we agreed to meet with her at 9 o'clock that night back at the newspaper to see the presses roll. It was going to be the front page. Well, of course, we get back there and can't find Golightly anywhere. There's nobody around except in the printing press factory, 75-year-old presses that, as you say, a kindergarten child should run. We are sitting there watching the presses roll, and so this fat, gutted, crew-cutted white dude Moses across. Hi, how are you going? What are you doing here? Anyway, an ASIO agent from a mile away is supposed to be running the presses and clean as a whistle under his fingernails, and just happened to be sent to Port Moresby to this office to further his career. Yeah, right. From Perth.
But the mention of the fingernails, if you work in a printing room, the first thing that you look at is a person's nails. If it's not black with the printing ink,
yes,
you ain't working in a printer's office. So.
Exactly. And he just happened to be staying beside the Australian High Commission, which was running a rent of about 2,000 kina per week. So the Aussies were paying a mozza for him to be staying there, and he fronts up to be chatting with us.
But then the guy, the big tall fellow in the office.
Yes, yeah.
That was about 8 people, black people working in the office.
Yes.
And there's one white guy who'd been come up from
Oh, tall, skinny guy with a beak, like a Jew beak.
That's right.
But
and had to squeeze past us and never even acknowledge we were there.
Yes.
And how many white people would stagger into his office?
Yeah, right.
0.
And so, 2 be in there at the same time.
That's right. And he said to Golightly that he knew me from Melbourne.
That's right. When she went to him and said, "Why is this not going?" "Oh, I know him from Melbourne." Yeah. So kudos to Golightly, because that was to be the front page news on the Monday, and we were leaving on the Wednesday. So he had said to her, phone the government and phone the National AIDS Council. Put her in the garage, babe. Phone the National AIDS Council to get their take. So she phoned both of them on the Monday, and either one of them said they had no comment, but they were watching everything that we were doing. But they had no comment. So she goes back and she says, well, they don't have any comment, because and it was on the Monday that we took 8 that were squashed into the little baby Jesus car, the little white car that we'd bought for the clinic up there. So we took them. There was Charlie, who'd regained his sight enough to walk around unaided after suddenly going blind years before overnight. There was Peter of 12 years who was lame, crippled. He had dead legs from the knees down for 12 years, had not left his village until the day he was brought to us by Moses. There was Jimmy, of course, and the others, all that we could squish into James, and little Sabrina with her son Joshua, who was little Joshua. He was puffed up like a balloon.
Can I borrow $2?
Oh, yeah, grab... Anyway, so Dorothy took photographs. She had the photographer take them and just got their names and addresses and a little bit of a background on each of them. So this was again satisfying what this dude had said, because she wanted to run it on the Wednesday. And remember, she phoned us and she said, I promise I will get it out for you on the Wednesday. I know you are leaving Wednesday morning. So, and of course we get to Wednesday and nothing on the front page, some pathetic story, front page. So it was Dorothy who went to Stephen Marshall, just happened to be a coincidence, same name, an Australian ABC reporter stationed in Papua New Guinea for his term, almost ready to go back to Sydney. She went to him outside of the office and said, there is something wrong. This is what's happening. So she handed it over to him, and he went to Lucy, spent time with her, and what we saw was the 12 minutes aired on Lateline. I think it was the 27th of March 2009 that aired on the ABC. So 12 minutes where he did his best, because you have, the reporters have to go to the opposition as well. So he did. He went to the National AIDS Council, the Jamie Moxton Graham, the health minister or whatever he was. That
straight out of the jungle.
Straight out of the jungle. No. It was Ya's father who had died, and his portion of the inheritance from the house that was sold that financed it, and it was $85,000 with everything that we did up there. And we bought people groceries. We fed them because they didn't have money to feed themselves. And so here's this idiot, Moxton Graham, who's saying, they're just separating people from their wallets or something, meaning that, we were up there taking money from them. It was the other way around. We had money taken from us, stolen from us several occasions. and all we did was to care for the people, treat them, and feed them, make sure that they had plenty of food to take home, especially Moses and his wife. Anyway, kudos to Golightly, who knew something was wrong and went to Stephen Marshall, got the 12 minutes up. You sent him the text saying, if you shame my name, I'll hunt you down. And that's when he, of course, had to interview Dr. David Cooper, St. Vincent's Hospital in Sydney. Oh, wouldn't I like to see his head on a platter.
Well, he said there's no cure for HIV.
Yes.
The idiot.
And then he named
What's HIV got to do with it?
Yes, and then he named the electromagnetics, and these electromagnetic they don't work. So he knows they do work. Anyway, so this another beady-eyed looking Jew, $250,000, $300,000 a year at least in his position, depriving people of their lives. Now this is where it all comes down to judgment and to account. We proved that it's a lie. There's a patent number on AIDS. It's 4647773. They worked on it for 50 years. Now, it's all about the T cells. It's all about the T cells. You heard in John Rappaport's. It blinds the T cells so that T cells cannot see the invaders. So by killing the virus, it takes 4 minutes under laboratory. That was proven back in 1990 by Dr. Stephen Kiley. He was the one who ran an electric current through it. And that's when Dr. Robert Beck got onto the trail, because he read that, goes, oh my God, and then it's removed from the AMA archives, gone completely. So he developed the protocol. It's called the Dr. Robert Beck protocol. We just put the money where our mouth is and went and did it and proved it. We used the 4 different protocols. Each one of them kill all germs, pathogens and viruses. That's the colloidal silver. You can make it yourselves, cost nothing. That's your protection there. Then the ozone in the water. And then we had the flash, the magnetic flash. Now you get all of these armchair... Now I'm getting really riled because all of these armchair critics, and I can think of a few. One idiot phones Golightly. Now, first of all, in countries like this, once they're told that they are HIV positive, it is a shame to them. They don't tell anybody else because they are so lied to and educated that they will actually bury alive, and this has happened, people who go back to their villages and have been told that they are HIV. The village people, their family members, bury them alive, or they ostracise them. So they don't tell people that they are HIV positive or that they have AIDS. It's just that we walked in and said, we've got the cure, that Golightly says, I think I have AIDS. And she was, within 20 minutes, she stopped her coughing, got her strength back, and she was the one who says to her, I feel so good, I'm not coughing. This had been going on for months. So then there's oh right, here comes the delete pattern. Anyway. I'm not. Idiot. From sitting back in Sydney on their fat ass doing nothing. Phones Golightly. Oh, you have AIDS. Fuckwit Australian. So Golightly says, no, I don't. I mean, this is the greatest... Well, she didn't then anyway. And she just makes some lame excuse, like this. Shrugs it off because that's what they all do. Nobody admits it. We were working with the AIDS workers, the likes of Lucy, 45 under her. She wasn't even paid by the Salvation Army. The useless 50 kina a week. It's about $25. They owed her 3 months, and everybody else that they were working with, another Jew organisation, telling people there is no cure for AIDS. Just makes me so sick. So then you get these idiots calling us liars and cons and all the rest of it. I tell you what, that's your judgment. You're going into a place where you're going to experience 1,000 times over exactly what you've allowed by your stupidity.
It's not stupidity.
Oh,
It's evil.
it's evil, total evil. The same ones believe that those towers came down, according to the official story. Now I'm fed up, really, really fed up in this world where you're fed. It's the world of lies, people. Now, there's other movies out there talking about these battles going on in the heavenly realm. We've looked at one yesterday, most recently. I forgot that we'd actually looked at it a few weeks ago. Total and absolute bullshit. This is the bottom line. If they are not talking that the Christ has returned, he's on the earth, and his new name of the revelation is Brian Leonard Golightly Marshall, and he has been announced by Pope Benedict XVI, who has paid with his freedom and lost his closest friends through kidnapping and murder. If they are not talking about that, because that's the only thing that's going to stop anything, don't you realise? Everything else is a scam. It is absolutely, and it doesn't matter if the people who put it together truly believe it. That is their rabbit hole. Everything is a rabbit hole, and you can make things happen when you are so far down your own rabbit hole, then the universe does conform to your misguided, uninformed thought pattern. That's the way it works. So we have our few saints. I watched Heiko's little video last night where he is beside himself because every time he opens... Well, first of all, he's trying not to open his mouth because we've told him not to. Because anybody who knows that the Christ is back and does open their mouth, they get ostracized and rejected, which is exactly what Jesus, he said. They will hate you on account of me because they hated him. We are back in the judgment. You cannot change anybody. They are either going to get it or not. So for your own sake, saints, it's judgment. You do what you can do to get on with your lives, providing for yourself and your family if you have a family to care for. The ones around you, doesn't matter how close they are, or extended families, more than likely a total stranger who knows you not will wake up sooner than your families around you.
Well, I had no luck with me and my family.
Nor my own family.
Just the opposite.
So the less you say, what is it? Less is more. I've had proved that time and time again. Say nothing. Please. Say nothing.
Let your fingers do the talking.
Send a link. Yeah, send a link, send a tweet, whatever. Just get there and then just say nothing with it. Send the links, that's it. People are going to wake up or they're not. It's judgment. If they rejected him in their last lives, they will reject him again. I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to get off my rant. 53 minutes, we can finish it here. Anything else?
Throw another Jew in the barbie.
Totally. They are really feeling the heat. This is why it's getting very, very intense. And of course, they all know the Christ is back. All of the leaders do. It's game over, Rover. This is the intensity of it. Oh, here we go. Let's sock it to them. The LGBTs. Oh, this idiot. Charisma News. I was thinking about this particular one really irritates me. His name is... I'll go away. It's all about subscribing. Another Jew in disguise. Michael Brown. Get lost.
Dr. Michael Brown?
Dr. Michael Brown. He's rejected the information, of course. And he's the one, he just says, according to a 2011 Gallup poll, Americans thought that 25% of the population was gay, meaning 1 out of 4. The reality is that less than 2% of the population is gay, meaning fewer than 1 in 50 people, and many gay leaders know this is true. So people of America, you have been duped. Well, certainly, and now we've got Obama and Michael as FLOTUS, the First Lady. What a joke.
He's got bigger bloody shoulders.
Oh, he's much bigger than his, it's disgusting. So Obama is Michael's wife, seems like. She's the bigger bloke. And her pushing her agenda, getting people to drink water. What, fluoridated?
That's all we've got in America.
And pushing GMO foods as her agenda. Anyway, that's it. I'll finish for today. I'm being wound up. Later, Gators. 55 minutes. Joel can add his little bit and we're gone.